Hi, welcome back. Um, Hazor is a place up in northern Israel, and um, it's the place we're going to go to is the kind of the beginning of the River Dan, which ends up going into the Jordan River. It's a beautiful place, and just really, really beautiful. There's tons of springs that come up out of the ground that create this beautiful river. And one of the reasons for going up here is to see this, which is um, the temple that was built in the northern kingdom at the time when the Israel was split in half. This would have been before David rejoined the two kingdoms back together again. But what's great about this temple is that it is the exact duplicate of the temple that was in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount. So you'll get a chance to see what the temple's really like. You'll see on this picture that there is metal rods that represent where the altar where animals would have been sacrificed was located, and you'll see the steps up going up to the Holy of Holies. So what's great about this, you get a real feel for what the temple was like um, in Israel many years ago. Um, this is a real cool site. There's a lot of neat things that we'll see at this site, and so that'll give you a good idea. Then we're going to go to Caesarea Philippi, which was a worship center, pagan worship center that um, the gates of hell were located. And if you read this text, you'll see Jesus is asking his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they tell him, "Well, prophet or John the Baptist or Elijah." And then he says, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter says, "You are the Christ." And Jesus says that heaven and earth has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And the gates of hell, and he says, and Peter, on this rock, Peter means rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Well, this is a picture of what the worship center would have looked like. And you see a building in the middle, and then there's a building off to the left of the picture, which was a temple, which is backed up against a cave. Water flowed out of this cave, and they couldn't hear the bottom when they threw things down into this cave. It goes way down. So they thought this was the gates of hell. This is where hell started. If you want to get to hell, this is where you went. And so they would sacrifice animals and I think even people down this hole to appease the gates of hell, to appease hell. If you look to the right, you'll see a niche in the wall. And now, today, this is what it looks like. You'll see the cave, and then to the right, a niche in the wall. And so we're going to go to this place, and it's really fun. Caesarea Philippi is not Caesarea that we went to earlier, but it's it's a place up in the northern part of Israel, and it's where the disciples had Jesus go because John the Baptist had just died, and they wanted to get him out of that area in case he would be the next one. Then we're going to go to Bet Shean, and if you read 2 Samuel 1, you'll hear the story of Bet Shean, which is a military base. And here it is. Bet Shean is actually the mountain on the back of the slide. What's in the foreground is a later Roman city. This Roman city was probably started or was going around 200 BC through later. But what's behind it is a military base that would have been around during the time of Solomon, David, and Saul. And it's this place where um, Jonathan and Saul were killed, when they were trying to take this military base over, and they were hung off the side of the mountain. And this upset David very much. Jonathan was his good friend, and if you read the text, you'll hear this story. But this is a place we're going to see. At the very top is a tree that was used in Jesus Christ Superstar, where Judas hung himself. So if you're familiar with that movie, you're going to see the tree that they used for him to hang himself. Then we'll be going to Jericho. Jericho isn't super interesting, but they are starting to excavate this site. And of course, Joshua 6, if you read that, that's Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho. Most of us have sung songs about that. This is the site. Then we're going to go to Qumran. Qumran is interesting because it's a place where a community of Essenes were living. The Essenes were a religious group, and they had gone out into the wilderness. That, by the way, some scholars believe that John the Baptist came from this community. And they went out in the wilderness. They were following Isaiah, and they were preparing a place for the Lord, for the Messiah to come. And you remember that John the Baptist says about John the Baptist that he is to go in the wilderness and prepare the way of the Lord. So they followed that literally, went into the wilderness, and they were staying ritually clean by bathing in baptismal baths over and over again every day, trying to be ritually pure, so when the Messiah came, they would be ready. And they created this community. Well, why this community's one of the reasons this community is so interesting are these caves that are right outside Qumran. And in the 1960s, a shepherd was throwing rocks up into these caves, and he heard a clay jar break. And he thought that was unusual, so they investigated, and they found in these caves a lot of clay jars. And what they were is jars from the Qumran community. When the Romans came in the 70s, they fled, and they hid all of their scrolls in clay jars up in these caves. And here's an example of a scroll that was found in the jar. And what was great about these, and we'll talk more about these when we get there, but what was great about these is these are, by the way, the Dead Sea Scrolls. And what's great about these scrolls is that they were the oldest Old Testament texts that we had ever had. And they were also the most complete texts. Now, they weren't the text of every book in the Older Testament, but there were a lot of texts there of Isaiah and Genesis and Psalms and other materials about their life that really helped in educating people. This will be a very interesting site to walk around. I think you'll enjoy it very much. Next, we're going to go and spend 3 days, 2 nights in the kibbutz En Gedi. We'll be doing things around, but we'll have one day when we'll be here. And this is a resort, basically. A kibbutz, of course, is a Jewish commune. And the job that they have, the thing that keeps them alive and well, is that they run a resort. And it's right by the Dead Sea. And so the Dead Sea is like a mile below sea level. So things, because of the climate here, grow amazingly fast. Like that big tree in the picture is probably no more than, like 10, 12, 15 years old. But it looks like it's 30 or 40 years old. So, and they can grow anything here. So they do. They have plants from all over the world. So if you're interested in plants, you're going to love this place. And this will be we'll have a full day of just to rest and go down to the Dead Sea and enjoy it. And this is kind of halfway through the trip, so it's kind of nice to have a time where we aren't rushing around. You'll want to go down to the Dead Sea and float. If you've never been a swimmer, you're definitely going to be able to float in the Dead Sea. It is amazing. And one of the things that people also do here is they put Dead Sea mud on their face. It's full of a lot of minerals. The Dead Sea is very concentrated because all the water ends here, goes nowhere else. The only way the water gets out of here is to evaporate. As it evaporates, it gets very salty and has a lot of minerals. And it's supposed to be good for the skin, so people will put mud on their face and then they'll go wash off. So you might want to do that. So that's this trip. I'm going to be doing the next slide. Next slide's soon. So look back real soon, probably the next day or two, and I'll have it on the website. Getting close to our trip, so I'm looking forward to it. Well, I'll talk next time a little bit about what you need to bring, that sort of thing. Okay? Okay, take care.